All right, and welcome to the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast. Back again, I'm Daniel, and here with Derek. Derek, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know where to go from there, but we're...
well, that was awkward.
No, we've...
He was waiting for the Russian accent.
No, we had
that was very...
That was very good, yes. While we were off air, I think we were trying to switch accents.
We were. Yeah.
It all inevitably just turned into a Russian accent. I think.
Boris and I were talking.
We apologize to our Russian listeners.
Yes. Please don't send Boris over here to kill me. Okay?
Right. See, I lived in Hungary for a long time, and people said, dude, what does a Hungarian accent sound like? And I can't reproduce it to save my life because I'm not really sure. I know it when I hear it, but I can't do it. I don't know. So, but anyway, it's not Russian. It's not close to that. It sounds like, actually it's the same, because Hungarian is related to Finnish and Estonian. And I have heard some people from Finland on social media, when they speak English, it sounds exactly like a Hungarian accent, except it's a different language. It's only related.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'll just try the Finnish accent and I can figure it out. But
how about you just finish up that?
Well, welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. As we go into the lingual nuances around the world. But no, we had last week you and I got to sit down. We had a last minute cancellation.
We did.
Sometimes business people are so businessy. We can't have to cancel. We're going to reschedule Robert Preston for a later date. But we had a great time just talking about our mission. Well, we tell people when we're serious, the way we talk on the show is exactly the same way we talk when we're off the air. That's one of the reasons we decided to do the podcast, because, man, this is gold. Other people need to hear this.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, we talk about the mission where we want to see our heart for entrepreneurs, our heart for, I think, what God has given us to do, and He just continues to show us that at every step. So we're really excited that how more and more people are hearing about us and being impacted by us, and it's more people are reaching out to us asking for more.
Yeah,
I think, and you know, what are those kind of resources? Because we really want to be, you know, like we say a lot, we don't want to be 10 steps to be a millionaire. We want to help you. How do you set up your LLC? How do you know, very basic things that can help people to get over those roadblocks from them taking that step into the entrepreneurial world, where I think they can have a massive impact. But also, we've been recording this week our 5 of 5s, which you'll see more about. We're encouraging entrepreneurs to get up at 5 o'clock to start those disciplines, those physical, spiritual, intellectual disciplines that will make you not just a better entrepreneur, but a better husband, father, wife, partner, and business owner, and follower of Christ. And so we decided to have the good idea, well, if we're going to ask them to get up at 5, we're going to get up at 5 and actually do recording.
Yeah, I mean, we do it.
We do, so, as long as my kids stay asleep.
As I said last week, we're not liars, so we do get up at 5, not 5 at night. We do it at 5.
We do it at 5.
Yeah, tired. You can see it in the video. We're still a little tired.
For sure. I think the first one we did, I wasn't sure exactly what we talked about for the first 6 minutes until that coffee kicked in. And then my this morning, my daughter woke up, knocked on the door.
Yeah.
Right at the end. She's about 2.5, almost 3 years old. She woke up. So my office is right next to her bedroom, and she knocked. I heard this little gentle rapping on the door, and we finished up, and I went to the door, and she went, "Daddy, are you okay?" She's not used to hearing talking that early. I guess that in the next room. So, but anyway, hey, just throw on some Miss Rachel and get ready for the day. So
we were talking about, that the podcast isn't about 10 steps to becoming a millionaire or building your business that way. It's really about not necessarily 10 steps to becoming rich and famous. Mm-hmm. It's about laying the foundation that will lead to that. Yeah. That foundation that is a lasting foundation. Because you can become very wealthy and then lose it all.
Sure.
And have nothing to fall back on.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, I was looking at some other podcasts. I follow some other business podcasts, and there's a lot out there. The ones that are really popular, they're the ones that, hey, this is how I became a multimillionaire. If you want to, run a $150 million business, this is what you got to do. And I said, we're a little harder sell because we say, hey, maybe God just, you're going to run a business that's going to do $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. And that's where God has you. That's what works for you. that's the dreams that you have, and it enables you to be involved in your church and to support people and to, take the gospel where it needs to go using the resources you have. That's a harder sell to sometimes. It doesn't make great T-shirts.
Right.
But it's really it's biblical principles that can work anywhere and everywhere, no matter what your aspiration and what God's given you to do. If it is a $150 million business or $1 billion business, the principles don't change.
No,
not
at all.
If you're going to run a sweet shop like little Terry Sanders in Century, and you're going to make the best fudge in the entire world, and that's where she wants to be, and that's where she wants to stay.
That's it. Yeah.
And she's doing amazing things. I mean, she told me last week she got to pray with a customer in line who just looked disturbed, and she said, "Can I pray with you?" And prayed with her, and it ended up spawning a 2-hour conversation, a spiritual conversation with someone that never had a spiritual conversation before.
Wow. Look at that.
Great fudge.
That's what it's about.
So, anyway, today we have with us David. I want to say Horowitz because you got me off the. It's David Horowitz.
It's not my fault.
Say it with Russian.
David. It is. It is Horowitz if you say it fast. Just Horowitz.
There
David Horowitz from Renew Concierge Physical Therapy here in Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
And we met you through a previous guest, correct?
Yes.
Caitlin Gray from Evolve Medical. And so we were very excited to have the opportunity to have you in talking today. We had some great conversation already while we were in here trying to get set up and everything figured out this afternoon. And I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about today and how God's going to lead it. But first, kind of introduce yourself to our listeners. You're our guests.
How many guests? I only see one.
We're professionals.
Yes.
We do this all the time. Tell us a little bit about as much as you're comfortable sharing about maybe your life story, what brought you to this point, how God has brought you to physical therapy and the business you're now operating.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I've been a physical therapist for 15 years and been a business owner for 5. And the pretty straight and narrow journey through physical therapy school, got my doctorate in 2010, ended up working in all kinds of settings for a long time, always dissatisfied with the medical model. If any of your listeners know by now, it's broken.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of led me to want to start my own practice because there are so many problems with it that it really impedes the outcomes and the service that people really do need. It's one thing if you have a business laying concrete and there's a crack there or there's imperfections along the way in a lot of different businesses. Right. Nothing impacts someone's life as much as their health.
Yeah.
And so I got to witness time and time again these imperfections of the healthcare model that really impede people's health and therefore their livelihoods, their quality of life, to the point where I just had enough. Really felt called to start my own practice. There's a whole testimony how God orchestrated that. But in the end of 2019, I was putting the groundwork together for my practice. And I felt like the Lord told me, I want you to go heal my people so they can worship you, or me. Right? Right. And that kind of was my why. I'm like, okay. I decided to want to work with runners and athletes, CrossFitters. That was kind of what my bent was. I've always been a sports guy.
We're out.
And God said, no, I want you to treat chronic pain.
Oh.
And I then said no. And I was like, I said no.
Oh,
right.
I thought you meant ice. I was like, well,
nope. I said I took some time to really process that. Sure. Mainly because the chronic pain world is very difficult in medical, right? They're the failed cases. They're the people that are the biggest problems. There's a lot of psychosocial problems that go along with chronic pain. There's lots of reasons. And it's not to take away from the value of the people. It's just I also recognize it's hard.
Sure.
Right. And I was like, I don't even know if I feel qualified and to take on this endeavor. And so I put it all together. I came to terms with it. God's like, look, I'm going to take care of you. Just do what I tell you to do, and it'll work out. I'm like, okay. February of 2020, I saw my first patients. And 2 weeks later, my current employer at the time fired me for the crazy thing of opening up your own practice on the side, which was not in any way competing with that.
Right.
You know, and that was March 9th. 1 week later, does anybody recall what happened?
Like COVID.
Yeah. So everything shut down a week after I technically really launched.
Happy grand opening.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is I think back to the story of Gideon. God's like, that's too many people. And he's like, now cut it in half and tell everyone else to go home that's scared. And now even, figure out a way to make it so impossible that when you do succeed, you cannot say that it's anything that you did, right? And I feel the same way in the first couple months. I was fired on a Monday. I met a mutual friend from my church Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I went to my first networking meeting that started a spiral effect of referrals and
Sure.
business and
Wow.
whatnot. In 3 months, I was full.
Wow.
And then you look back at that and you're like, during COVID, the early months of COVID. And so, to me, that's God saying, don't you have pride about this? And so when we talk today about, what's the advice for Christian entrepreneurs? You got to pray.
Sure.
You've got to spend time with the Lord and say, okay, what do you want me to do? Because if you're doing anything on your own accord, your own strength, it's going to waste away. It's going to fail in one way or another. And of course, for a time, it works. And so that's how it all started for me. I can go on and on about all the cool things I've been able to do in the last 5 years. But our practice specializes in chronic pain. And when I say chronic pain, I don't mean pain management.
Okay.
I mean fixing it. We do not manage your symptoms. We eliminate it. And we've been seeing time and time again, that's what we're doing.
So when you say chronic pain, I mean, there a lot of different things can cause chronic pain.
Yes.
So some physical therapy, maybe disease or something like that as well, correct? You're not talking about like fibromyalgia.
I am talking about fibromyalgia.
You are talking about fibromyalgia.
Yes. 100%.
Well, good. Expand my mind, because I can't picture how physical therapy, impacts it. I mean, I'm sure obviously it does.
Yeah, so the traditional understanding of physical therapy is a bunch of exercises.
Right.
That is because the medical model has failed everybody, and we have been neutered as physical therapists on what we're actually capable of doing. And so essentially what happens is we become glorified exercise providers, trainers. And again, there's nothing, training is great. Go to a personal trainer, they're awesome. But when you're trying to heal from injury, a lot of times exercise will make it worse.
Sure.
And good, look, lots of exercise will be really good for you. It'll get you 80% better half the time, right? That's really what happens. Yeah. There's this other contingent of 20 to 30% of people who don't fully get better, and then another 10 to 15% of people that get worse with exercise. I'm what I would consider a manual therapist. I put my hands on you and correct the things. So a lot of people would compare me to more of like a osteopathic physician,
right.
Or a chiropractor, where we put our hands on you, we adjust your body, we do some soft tissue work or whatever. We have our own techniques, we have our own ways of doing things, but that's the mechanical model that works really, really well. And then we have a neurologic model that we work with. So someone with fibromyalgia, that is essentially trapped inflammation in your nervous system causing tender points all over the body. And so I and my team are specially trained to identify where the trapped inflammation is, eliminate it from your body, and it turns off the trigger points and the rest of your body pain instantly. Wow. It sounds like a miracle, but it's physiology. It's neurology.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I've got several people in my family who have fibromyalgia. Well, they married into my family who have it, and they've tried every, this medication and that, and it's just a constant thing. How do people? I mean, obviously, we talked about this when Caitlin was on. The medical system is not just broken. I think we're kind of brainwashed to think like I didn't know that you could have your own practice in the medical field and that you could have a cash only. There were cash services in medical. I didn't know. I thought the only option I had was to go through the insurance machine, to go through the major hospitals and things like that. And I think the trust in the medical community over the last few years has probably been
broken.
Shaken a lot. So how do you go about, and I know a lot of people in business want to know this question, how do you communicate to people what you are and who you do, and separate yourself from that 80% workout physical therapist that you talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
how does that happen?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. Let's start generally, and then I'll kind of get a little more specific about what I've done. Generally speaking, in the medical model, you have to separate yourself. There has to be a differentiator, right?
Sure.
So in general, people who go to physical therapy in my world, they go and they say, hey, I saw someone different every single time. They never really looked at me. They gave me a bunch of exercises. I can do those exercises at home. I only got about 50% better. I'm still having pain. I'm still on medications. And those people are dissatisfied. Well, how do you catch those, right? That's marketing. That's networking. That's communicating, like, hey, look, there's something better for you. Now, you can do that in any industry too. You can find the people that are dissatisfied. I had a friend, this is interesting. So I had a friend who is wildly wealthy and very successful. And we were having this conversation, and he's like, well, how many people are your people? And I said, about 20%, because everyone else does decently well, did not value what I offer. And he goes, I wonder if there's a way to expand your 20% to like 60, 70%, because I want to, you should be able to expand your market, to be more people. And I said, no, that's not the mission. My why is not the 80% that do well. My why is the 20%, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, we've got a wait list with my practice. I've got 5 providers, and people are waiting to see us for months.
The 20% is probably millions of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognize that once you know who your people are, you can message it properly.
Sure.
You can have conversations with people. We're having a conversation, and people are listening and they're saying, oh, fibromyalgia. I know somebody with that. We literally fix it. In fact, it's one of the easiest things to fix, truly.
Wow.
And talk about brainwashing.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned to believe that if a doctor, physician does not know something, then therefore it does not exist.
It's unknowable.
Now, look, I'm not saying physicians are bad. I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking about.
Sure.
They know a lot of things, and they're really, really good for a lot of things. But they're not good for everything, right? Just like if you were to ask me, hey, Dave, how do you manage diabetic, neuropathy, or how do you manage somebody who is going on Ozempic and needs to lose weight? I have no idea. I'm not that tool, right? But Caitlin would be that tool,
Sure.
right? And so I think we need to recognize that the medical model has many, many tools, and you need to know what you're trying to fix with that tool. And unfortunately, both the medical model doesn't know how to prescribe the right tool.
Sure.
When I say the tool is the physician, the doctor, the practitioner.
Yeah.
Because then we have our own toolbox inside of that, right? We don't separate these out very well.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, all that to be said, if you need to know who your people are, and you need to be able to message properly. And then for us, we haven't done anything more than just get great outcomes. My marketing budget is zero.
Nice.
My marketing budget, if anything, is reinvesting into the people that join our team and saying, okay, I'm going to make sure you're the best therapist in Pensacola. And that's what we've done. I have all of our practitioners have wait lists, and those people who are coming in have already pre-qualified themselves. They're like, I want what you guys are offering because my friend said that you fixed the impossible, right? And I always tell my PTs, turn one patient into 3, and that's what we've done.
Nice.
But you don't do that without bringing the goods.
Sure. Yeah. You got to deliver.
You do. And I think that's really important too. The Bible says that see a man excellent in his work. He will stand before kings, not among obscure men.
That's right.
That is one of the foundational scriptures I base my business off of, that we will do whatever we end up doing. We obviously do unto the Lord, but with excellence.
Yeah.
And when you do excellent work, people will come.
Yeah.
And that's your marketing budget, right? Is the excellence in which you put into your profession, whatever that might be.
Wow.
Yeah. Man, I couldn't have said it any better. That's absolutely the foundation of all business right there, for sure. That if you're doing the right work and you're doing it in the right attitude, you don't. I mean, for years we barely had a budget. We have a little bit of a budget now with marketing. We tried a little bit more. It didn't really move the needle much because word of mouth of our work was all we needed. And, man, that's great on that.
Well, it's like, they always say that your sphere of influence is your greatest market is because they're the people that know you, or get to know you, or they know you because they know somebody that knows you. That reputation follows you. That can build your business or it can break your business, for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the, I mean, you started back in 2020. Those first couple of years, I mean, especially during COVID. Tell us, kind of share with us, because a lot of people, especially aren't, familiar with starting a medically based business and things like that. What were some of the hurdles you had to cross in that first year? Point to maybe what were some moments where you're like, I'm not sure how this is working, or if it is working, or I can't keep up, or any of these kind of things. What were some of those first kind of struggles that you had to, those kind of roadblocks that happened when you first started business?
Protect your home with the best in the business. Duncan Custom Gutter and Coppercraft. From seamless gutters to stunning custom copper work, we deliver top quality craftsmanship that lasts. Say goodbye to leaks, fogs, and water damage with expert installation and repairs from the local pros you can trust. Call Duncan Custom Gutter and Coppercraft at 850-455-7246. Again, that's 850-455-7246. Or find us online at DuncanCustomGutter.com. Duncan Custom Gutter, where we say doing it right is cheaper than doing it over.
I think one of the hardest things for me was I didn't know what I didn't know.
Sure.
And so I got a coach and said, okay, this is how do I build and scale something? I am everything I've done from the very beginning of my practice has been, what is it going to look like in 5 years if I do this thing? And if it doesn't scale, I either don't do it, or I make sure I can do it, and I do it in a way that will scale.
Sure.
And I think it's important to recognize that if you are going to grow and scale, things that get you to 250, a year is going to be different from what gets you to $1 million and get you to 5 million and so forth.
Yes.
Right. So you have to recognize this is the season for this. This is the season for that. So I think for me to project into the future, okay, where am I going is really important. So one of the things I had to do is say, okay, what's my why? What's my goal? Where am I going? Where is this company designed to just pay the bills? Because at first it was.
Sure.
And then what does it look like to bring people on? I think one of the hardest things for me is what I do is very specialized. It is not cheap, and it is not easy to get someone to where I am.
Sure.
Not because I'm great, but because there is a lot of education that goes into the kind of hands-on therapy that I do.
Yeah.
Not, in fact,
Is it like licensing or like certifications?
So it's
completely different to what I just said.
every PT that comes into the workforce has a doctorate at this point,
Yeah.
and a license to treat.
Okay.
It is bare bones.
Right.
And the problem is that when someone else is paying for it, the client doesn't care. But as soon as they're paying directly, you're like, okay, what's the price tag? My price tag is this. Then all of a sudden they care about the quality.
Yeah.
And so what's really important for my practice is that I uphold that quality, that excellence. And one of the hardest things early on was I hired somebody and then they're like, well, I just want to work with you. Because it's a more personal thing. Think about your chiropractor, or no one has their physical therapist, right?
Right.
My people have their physical therapist
Right.
now. But there's a difference between that and going to the box shop down the road that has 25,000 locations around the country,
Right.
and it's just a bunch of exercises.
Yeah.
Right. No, you don't care about that. And that was hard, is to learn how to scale people. I always say that one of my missions, or one of the callings in my practice, is to learn how to scale the unscalable. No business model knows how to scale people well.
Yeah.
I'm learning that now. And so it's still one of my largest challenges, is how do you scale people well?
So
How do I do that?
tell us. 5 ways, everyone. Get your paper
Yeah.
and pen out.
Yeah.
I got
I
5
see.
ways to scale people. David Harvitz.
You have to hire the heart, not the skill.
Why?
Because you can train skill, you cannot change a character. You need to hire the people that are willing to go the length of the field to carry out the mission of the company. which is probably number 2, is you have to find someone that's aligned to your company.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, you got to know where you're going. You got to know your why. You got to know your vision. You got to understand everything about what it is that you're doing. Because if you're unclear about it, then how do you expect them to execute it?
Right.
And that they will not execute it if you're not training them on what it is. And so I think those are foundational. Once you get there, my practice, we have a residency that we've built. So nobody can work for me until they do this residency. They stand at my side for 6 months learning how to do what we do, and then they start seeing patients. So if someone would, I don't think we're expensive. I think, in fact, we're probably underpriced for what we can do. I think for most of your viewers that have fibromyalgia, if I said, hey, for $3,000, I'll fix your fibro, they'd be like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
They would say yes, right?
me
And I can
up.
tell you that
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot cheaper than that, right? My point, though, is that if when we look at the amount of time and energy it takes to train someone into doing what we do, 6 months for a doctor's salary, it's expensive,
Yeah.
right? And then you turn around and it's like, why does it cost so much? It's like, well, that's why. It's because my marketing budget just went to training this person.
Yeah, that's right.
But then as soon as they are launched, they are better than any other therapist in the city, hands down.
Wow.
Now, are we the best PT for every single person? No. There are some great therapists that do a lot of great work for different populations.
Right.
But if someone has failed at a traditional PT or an exercise-based type of practice, or have been seeing chiropractors for a long time and they're not getting full relief, those are our people.
Sure.
Right? And so we are one tool for a very specific population. And I'm not going to diminish the quality of work that a lot of people do
Right.
outside of what we do.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the people aspect is something that a lot of business owners at the beginning don't take into account at the very beginning, because excited, got a great idea, got a great business model. People is that it's like throwing a cat in a dark room. You don't know where it's going to hit you from or how it's going to react. It's going to be crazy, but you might survive it if you can find the light switch. And speaking of beating a metaphor to death, that's what I like to do. But I think the people aspect and being able to know that and hiring the right people, I think is key to being able to run a successful business. Somebody that's going to have the same heart, the same vision, that's going to take you along on the same path. Because I can tell you, you have somebody on your team working either against you or not for you. Dead weight is just as dangerous as somebody working, against you. Can sink an entire business, no matter how good your business model is and no matter your business plan is. How long do you spend on finding that right person? I mean, I don't know how you post to a job board for a physical therapist. Do you interview a lot of people? Does it take that, or do you get most people come to you once they find out who you are and what you do?
That's actually one of the bottlenecks I have right now. It's hard to hire.
Yeah.
And so truly up until now, God just brings me the right people. I'm sorry, it's not a business strategy to be able to replicate. But I mean, I'll tell this story real quick. Early on in my practice, I had like nobody on my calendar. I'm just starting off, and someone randomly called in, said, "Hey, I feel like I'm supposed to see you. I'm having surgery in 2 weeks, a neck fusion, and I had a dream last night, and God said to call you." I'm like, okay, sure.
That's unfair marketing that
It
the
is.
rest of us don't get.
That's right. Well, it's favor, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, not a business strategy, right?
So
But
how
what
do
it
you
is,
plan
though,
that?
what it is when you look back at the whole breadth of the start of my practice, I told you there was things that happened that I cannot take credit for,
Yeah.
and the only credit I can take credit for is the fact that I was diligent about doing what God told me to do. And what do you know? It works.
Perfect.
And so when people are starting their own businesses in any way, they should pray first, ask God what it is that they're called to do, and then be obedient.
Yeah.
And if you're obedient, there's blessing in obedience.
Yeah. Can we cycle back to your kind of Moses moment? You talked about it earlier. you said no to God. You're like, no.
I did say no to God.
You know, he's like, I want you to, go heal people and treat chronic pain. You're like, no.
Yeah, it's a
'cause
struggle.
I can't do that. And so I wrote down here your Moses moment. Tell us about that. Like, how did you finally come to the realization, okay, God, I'm going to do it? Like, what got you there?
I wrestled with it. I had to submit my heart and my will to His, and it takes sometimes a while. It'd be easy just to listen to your own heart and just go with it. And what's interesting is that God has given me a heart for chronic pain now. It's one of those things where I could have never seen myself doing what I do now 5 years ago. It wasn't there. But it was a few weeks of wrestling, saying, all right, like, you say this, but I don't know, God, here's my argument against that. And there was a time, and obviously, I'm talking as if like God just audibly says stuff to me. That's not necessarily how it works. But there's impression, there's peace, there's, look, the Bible never, the Bible says that, Jesus said, I'm going to send a helper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what good a helper, how good of a helper is somebody if you don't talk to them?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so, I'm not sitting there having a full blown conversation with an invisible ghost next to me. Right. At the same time, there's a way to hear from the Lord in our walks. And during this wrestling, I felt God said, don't worry about it. I will show you what to do. And what do you know? There are times in my practice where I was like, I don't know what to do with this chronic pain patient, and I just felt like God's like, well, why don't you go look over there on that random pinky toe, and that'll fix the back, and it works.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. So for a couple years, that's what I did. Is I just was like, well, I guess I'll just listen and just be willing to hear what He wants me to be doing in my practice, and it was God being gracious in that moment, saying, hey, I know you're going to wrestle with this for a little bit, but it's okay to step out in something. And it really comes down to, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for God?
Yeah.
And every entrepreneur out there that is a believer in Jesus Christ needs to be doing this for the Lord, not for themselves.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a believer, and I was asking him, he's having trouble with his business and doing some things, and I asked him, like, why are you doing this? And he's like, well, to pay the bills and to provide for my family, kind of generic answer, which is very valid and good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, go do that. And it was very apparent that he had never really asked God what he wanted to be doing for his business. And it's funny how I kind of traced it in that conversation. I traced it back to him, like, part of these problems that you have right now are because you never had that conversation with God. And he goes, oh my gosh, you're 100% right. And so, starting off, it's important to have that conversation with God. Say, okay, what do you want me to do? Why do you want me to be doing this? How do you want me to be doing this? Those are all questions that, every marketing book and every business book can tell you all the things, but it might not be pertain to you,
Sure.
right? So, that was my Moses moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
We talked about it, I think, yesterday, or maybe a couple of days ago on our 5 for 5 about, we go and get all this training and knowledge on, in the field or in school, and you go, okay, well, at what point do I go, well, God's given me the ability to go and learn that, and I can handle running a business or doing this aspect. He doesn't really have to take care of it because He's given me the ability to do it. I don't have to rely on Him. Well, sure, I should. I should always fall back and rely on Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the curse of the intellect.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Is we're constantly up here,
Yes.
and not operating from a spirit. And that was something I struggled. You talk about some of the struggles I had early on. That was
Sure.
one of them. There were times where I was striving, and the Bible, the Proverbs talks about striving as working with sorrow, and it says not to strive.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I'm trying to do too much on my own.
Yep.
I remember very distinctly. This was still COVID times, so no one's really doing anything. And I went on a walk with my family, and it was like that morning. I was like, I'm gonna stop marketing. I'm just gonna rest and not worry about the next thing I'm supposed to be doing. And this was like in March 2020, where I was still not really full yet, and I'm like have all this time and energy and anxiety a bit of like I only have like a 3-month emergency fund. Like if we get to end of May, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. And I just was like, I'm going to just be content and be okay. Went on a walk with my family. I walked around the corner of my neighborhood and met a guy who ended up being a long-term client of mine, it still works with me today for a number of things. And it's interesting how God was just like, I got you. Remember, like when there's obedience and you're like, God's telling me to do this or that, or I should follow this biblical principle, and then you do, like God's gonna just slide a little blessing in there, for you.
I think of this, sometimes in business or in life, how you're bringing glory to God, or even how truly successful you're being, is all dependent on what the conversation is and who the conversation is with. Because when it becomes about the intellect and I got this, the conversation's between me and me. I got it. The conversation's gone with God. I'll talk to you if I need something. I often picture God as kind of sitting in the room, kind of like we all have kids. You can sit there, hey, come get your dinner. Mm-hmm. And they go, wow, in and out of the room, and you're holding their food, and they finally go, Daddy, I'm hungry. Well, I've been holding your dinner here the entire time for 6 minutes now, waiting for you to come get it, right? And I think God is sitting there sometimes, and we're going around, I got this. Mm-hmm. God's like, don't, okay. Hey, all right. Okay, well, you're going to do it. Go ahead. That's, and then you go, God, this didn't work. He goes, I know. I was trying to tell you, but you didn't stop and ask.
That's right. You
didn't stop and talk to me. So how important is it? You said at the very beginning, pray before you start your business. Start praying and don't stop. Yeah. Pray. I know that's what you obviously have to bathe this in prayer every single day. That's why these disciplines, physical and spiritual and intellectual as well. If you're not taking those disciplines, you're going to find yourself in a trouble spot of striving for your own gains, for your own goals. It's not only going to be hollow, it's not going to last. Mm-hmm. And you're going to find yourself, and you don't have to find yourself into, what have I gotten myself into, or how did I not see that? Oh, now I've got to stop and ask God. Having a discipline to speak to the God and creator of the universe, to set you on the path that you're on now, why would we not stop every morning and say, what do I do for you now?
Right.
Where do you put me here today? What do you have for me today? And then obey, just like you said. We talked about this morning. I love the picture in Scripture, I think it's Hebrews, of a living sacrifice. Having to strap yourself to that sacrificial table and sacrifice yourself every single day. That means my hopes, my desires, my plans, my dreams, my financial goals, everything. I sacrifice it every single morning. And sacrificing doesn't mean, okay, God, you go make me rich. It means, if you never make me rich, if you never make me successful, if you never bless me with something else, worldly good ever again, I'm still yours.
Yeah.
Right? You put it all right there every single morning. That they don't teach in business school.
No.
I think it's so exciting to hear business owners talk like you, David, because it doesn't always happen. No. It really doesn't. And I know it's difficult. And I know it's, there's some days it's a lot harder to pray. It's a lot harder to speak the way you speak now. There's some days it may be, I don't know if it's all worth it, but how God brings you through that, because you bring it to him every day.
Yeah.
Right. You do it for him.
We talked about, and we talked about it again this a couple of days ago, God put Adam in the garden to tend it. Right. And we go, well, Adam went out and he worked it. He named all the animals. He grew all the vegetables. He did all that stuff. And you go, well, man, he killed it. He's got to get all the reward. But we got to remember back, and let's tie that to our business. God put us in our business. He gave us the intellect to do it. We go out, we work it, but God put us there. It's His. God put Adam in the garden, but it's God's garden. God put him there. It all belongs to Him. And we got to tie it back to Him and say, hey, this is yours. So we keep going back to Him. We do that by talking to Him in prayer. Mm-hmm. And when we get stuck, we go to Him in prayer. And then, again, you talked about, you went to networking events. So I kind of had a question, and we'll see if you can answer that one, which was, do you think you would have gone to those networking events had, COVID kind of come around? Were you thinking about that? And number two, you said you got a coach. So faith without works is dead. So you had your faith, and then you put the works in. It's kind of that Adam thing. He went and tended the garden, and you did that. What about your networking? Do you think you would have done that either way?
Yeah,
If you're thinking about buying your first home, relocating to the area, or investing in real estate, I'm Daniel Callahan, realtor with ERA Old South Properties, and I'm here to make the process simple and stress-free. So whether you're military, moving across town, or looking to grow your portfolio, I've got your back. So let's find the right place right now. Call me at 850-903-4650 and visit my website at danielcallahanrealestate.com.
think so.
Okay.
I didn't know I needed it, but again, I would call it a divine appointment, is where you meet someone that you're supposed to meet because God put them in your path. And she was a massage therapist who had a really thriving, good practice. I met her a month and a half, 2 months earlier. A friend said, hey, you should probably talk to her. I didn't. And then somehow we connected finally. And I wasn't trying. It was just like, just text her, say, hey, I don't know why I need to talk to you, but maybe I should. And that morning, woke up, said maybe I should do that, and she goes, oh, yeah, this is great. Let's have a meeting. I sat down, met with her. She goes, oh, you're awesome. I have so many patients that could use what you do, and you should come to my networking meeting tomorrow. And I said, okay, sure. So I go and I meet 30 other people of her friends, and she said, this guy is awesome. You should get to know him. And then, boom,
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything to do with it. In fact, it happened despite me.
Yeah.
And what was you mentioned something else that I wanted to touch on. What did you?
So I asked about your networking, and then I said you got a coach.
Yeah. So that's another thing we have to recognize too, is that there's two ditches. There's the ditch of intellectualism and pride, that you can just do everything yourself on your own accord, and then the other ditch is Holy Spirit will just do everything for me and come to dreams and fix and make everything work for me.
I mean, just ask, right? And
Just hey God, just send me people.
Yeah.
I mean, could he? Yes, but you know what he also wants us to do? Work.
Yeah.
Because work is not evil. Work is not bad. Work was a part of the design before the fall.
Yeah.
Adam worked the land. He tended the crop. He did whatever he did. He did things. He worked before sin.
First command God gave us.
So it's one of those things where we have to recognize that work is not evil. It's not bad. In fact, most people who don't have to work have lots of problems.
Yeah.
No.
And so then you got to ask yourself, well, what are you going to work towards? You can work to your own means, and there's a bad road that leads towards, or you can have a noble cause.
Yeah.
And that's actually, you asked earlier about how do you scale people. You kind of have to have that noble cause.
Sure.
If you want people with good character and good heart, you have to say, hey, you're not coming to work for me so that I can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say, come work for me because there's something greater than ourselves that we're going towards, and you can come along with me.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's another aspect of that I didn't necessarily get to mention. And so you do have to work. You have to work hard. I did 80-hour weeks, lots
Sure. Yeah.
of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there were nights where I was staying up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning working on dumb business stuff. And then there are some mornings that I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to go see a client at 5:30 because that's the only time they can see me. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Now, I wouldn't do it now, but I was doing whatever it took to get there. And so I think most people go into business, they have this, they see people in business, they go, I want that.
Yeah.
And they don't see the decade of time that
Sure.
that took to get there.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't scare the entrepreneurs off. That's what we're here to do, is try to get them from the one day to
Not
today.
for the faint of heart, though.
Yeah,
No.
no,
Don't
that's
start a
the
business
truth,
if
though.
you
I
want
mean,
to
that-
work less.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. That's what entrepreneurship is, and business owner is working more,
Yep.
but working diligently for the right purpose.
That's right.
And
Sure.
then it doesn't feel necessarily as much like work.
No, and you're right. I think entrepreneurs at their very heart seek to be a part of something greater than themselves. That's why they're willing to take on denial of things like pay, benefits at the beginning for the cause of something greater. That's why I think they're so positioned perfectly in the kingdom to do something so powerful in the world, because they've already got that built into them. They've come to that point in life where they come to that understanding where there's something greater, and I want to be a part of it. That makes the work a lot easier. I love getting up every morning. I love getting the opportunity to work. I love being able to control my time too, and be home with my kids, not working for somebody else, and be able to have dinner with my children. I still work when they go to bed at night. I still get up at 4:30 in the morning to work before they get up. I still work the long hours, but I'm excited to do it. And I have God gives me a little bit more control in being a part of my family's life than say the career I had working for someone else before, where you're on call 24/7.
Right.
And you're gone all the time, right? That's also a benefit to it, but it's not going to be less work. But you're building towards something great. And I think it's important when, entrepreneurs are looking, saying, the business I'm going into, is it going to be a net benefit for the people that I'm going to serve? And can it serve the community that I'm going to? Is it going to be something greater? And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to have high ideals. It could be a simple fudge shop. But it's something that, you drive towards every single day, that you're going to, I hate to use the word love, because you're going to hate your own business some days. Absolutely. But something that God has given you a vision and a passion for, that you can drive to, and you get excited every single day to get up. That makes it a lot easier.
It does.
It makes it a lot easier, especially when if it's bigger than you take you out of the picture a lot of times, which is where most of our problems come from.
Yep.
And you're able to see that and see the big picture and push forward to it. So I want to kind of ask you too, because I want you to speak to our entrepreneurs, because we want foundational principles that can help entrepreneurs be stronger spiritually, mentally, and physically. Because I think that's a call for us. I mean, it's hard for us to serve and to do what we need to do if our physicality is failing us. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do it the same way mentally and spiritually. Speaking maybe specifically, speak to our entrepreneurs the importance of being physically well, and I say that instead of physically fit necessarily, because not everybody's going to have ripped abs like Derek and I. Okay, that's why we wear black shirts. Because you can't
We don't want to show them off.
But
make anybody jealous.
Speak to that. I mean, what overall health? What some basic things that they can do. How that affects the other aspects of their life overall.
Well, I think it actually speaks more to personality type. I think some people, once you're in a rhythm, you stay in rhythm, and some people can operate a little bit less than that. People. It's interesting. I'd be curious to know some of these well-known entrepreneurs, that I think of Bezos and even Zuckerberg, where they look pretty good right now. They're obviously working out, and you're like, oh, that's what entrepreneurs do. A vast majority of entrepreneurs, do not take good care of themselves.
Like Elon Musk is not
He's
that shirtless pic that came out. That's not a guy that works out.
And so I want if there was one thing to really to touch on, is the fact that yes, your physical health is of great value, but your spiritual health is of more value.
Sure.
You should exercise. And it doesn't even matter what you do. You can walk, you can run, you can do some weights, you can take a bike class. It doesn't matter, but getting your heart pumping is going to be helpful. Given a small caveat of some health conditions, exercise is going to give you more energy. It's going to it's going to hone in your focus. There's a lot of benefits to be more productive. They've done studies where if you just work 8 hours in a row, how productive are you? But then if you work 3 hour break with exercise, and then another 3 hours, that right there is more productive than the 8. I'm making these numbers up, but the point is that exercise will make you more productive. And people seem to think that, if I just get up at 5 o'clock and just start crushing it from 5:30 to 5:30, those 12 hours without eating, without standing up, without going outside with some sun in my face, that I'm going to be the most productive. That's just not true. Right. And so adding some kind of physical activity to your life, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Moderate exercise is like a heart rate of like 120. Like you don't have to be crazy sweaty everywhere. But if you were to go outside and walk briskly for 15 minutes 3 times a day, by the way, that's all cumulative. You'll get the cardiovascular benefits of a 45-minute run or a 45-minute walk, and get the added benefit of the endorphins and the more of the focus. You'll get oxygen going through your body. All of that just hones it.
Wow.
And so it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to have abs of steel like you guys. But what you do need is to recognize that the productivity that we're all seeking as entrepreneurs comes at a very low cost physically. Is that good enough for you guys?
No, I
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything after the abs of steel,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that.
No,
We can go ahead and stop here.
I've tried to look more in depth, mainly because I'm in my 40s and I have such young kids. So I know I need to be in somewhat of good shape to keep up, or just to survive, that kind of thing.
Either one.
But I've seen, I've read some studies. I follow Dr. Huberman on Huberman
He's
Labs.
the neuroscience
Yeah.
guy.
He talks about the importance of sunlight.
Yeah.
Talks about the importance of just the basic things to
Drink
do.
water.
Drink water. He's like, none of this is major. How easy it is, and I've even done, and maybe you can speak to. I don't know if it's your area of expertise, but you may have a lot to say of it. We've started taking some different types of supplements, not like generic stuff, but specifically like was it D3 with K3 or something, whatever it's called,
K2.
K2 something.
You've been listening to Gary Brecka.
There's some numbers in there, some just different things like magnesium, especially at night. Some different things, and ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
I've started with ashwagandha. That sounds like something you smoke and not take. I didn't know that at first, or that it was legal to buy over Amazon. I was kind of nervous when I hit buy, but, but I've tried some different things that can help, and I try to exercise. I go to the gym now I'm just doing 4 times a day, a week.
4 times.
4 times a day. You
That's
said
why
get
do
abs
it
of
during
steel.
3
Yeah.
times. 3 times. But different things, and I've noticed a massive difference in flexibility and energy throughout the day. But I still, like today, I didn't go to the gym this morning because it's my day off. And then I had a sandwich for lunch, and I couldn't keep my eyes open.
Yeah.
So I was like, my body's changed, though, in my 40s. So I used to be able to just go 36 hours without sleep or eating, and I'm ready to go, and I still think that in the back of my head. But we got to, as we age, we kind of got to slow down and figure out those different kinds of things, because it's about more staying healthy. As opposed to being 25, it's about looking good at beach season. I don't want to go to the beach anymore, But it's about staying healthy and staying consistent throughout, especially mental focus. And being in business, you got to have the mental clarity to be able to actually make it through the day, and before you start having diminished returns throughout the day. Are there different things? I know you talked about 15 minutes. I don't know if you deal with supplements or anything like that as far as
So it's
overall
not necessarily.
health.
You're not going to get me to recommend different supplementation. It's not something I care to really
Sure.
push. In general, eat lots of protein.
Yeah.
Don't eat a lot of sugar. You do want to get a lot of the different vitamins and minerals. Everyone, and you can Google and you can talk to the right experts to get the right amounts of all the different things. Supplementation tends to be where there's lack of diet, right? And so if you're eating the right foods at the right quantities, you shouldn't need supplements, right? So D3, our bodies create, vitamin D. That means if you're low in vitamin D, you're probably not outside enough, right? Those are just the typical. So you should go to the beach, and so I say all that to say, health has so many facets, and again, it's frustrating because the person outside the medical system doesn't know where to look.
Sure.
And it's not like it's not like you can trust your doctors as much anymore. I think all that kind of got blown up with COVID.
Sure.
And it's frustrating because, well, who do you go to for this stuff? And now in the last couple of years, guys like Huberman and Brecka, and there's so many others that have come out and are feeding the need just like I would say I have in my industry.
Sure.
Right. So you have, all these PT practice. I mean, look, there's like 100 different practices, in our area, and everyone can go anywhere they want, and there's only maybe one or two other practices that don't take insurance like me. And the difference is that there is a whole slew of people that are dissatisfied with the model that it is. And I don't think it's just in physical therapy, right? Not just in pain treatment. It is across the whole medical model. The reason why supplementation and these guys on podcasts are so popular is because I think the population, Americans, we're starting to realize that our food is poisonous, that we have way too many neurotoxins in our environment, that there are too much chronic disease going on that is unexplained by blood work and x-rays and imaging studies. Okay, so where do we go? That's something that the entrepreneurs, not me, like I'm kind of set in my ways. It's the next generation of entrepreneurs that are going to be solving these problems, right? And I think we're starting to see the forerunners of that. I think we're truly in a new push in the healthcare industry of, we can make this a business in a traditional sense, because the medical model that has been controlled by pharmaceuticals and even just colleges and universities and through their research and their the insurance companies are starting to fall apart. And the reason why it's falling apart is because they're not getting good outcomes.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a big push in that direction quite a bit.
I hope we see a change in our medical industry and insurance industry, because I think we should be farther along, I feel, than we are. And I think we've done that to ourselves in a lot of ways. I think the industry itself tries to self-sustain.
Yeah.
And loses the focus of why it even exists. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that was forefront in our last election cycle. Hey, there's something happening in our country with people's health that we need to address. And if you're in business, I mean, you need to take your health absolutely seriously, because especially if you're starting a business, you can't take a sick day, really. You've got to figure out you still work even though you're sick.
Yeah.
But taking time to do the simple things, just like you said. I mean, 3 15-minute walks. What about 2? I'll negotiate. Can we negotiate?
You do whichever you want, man.
Okay, I want to do 4 7-minute walks and do that. Things that you can do that just like you take time to sit down and pray and read. You sit down to talk to your spouse and your kids and eat. Take things throughout the day, find things that work with you. Work with medical professionals that you trust to find out the best way that works for you, your situation, and your health. But stay on top of your health, because there's nothing worse than working yourself to death.
No.
And it's all for nothing. And your kids and your family can't depend on you anymore, or your business suffers. So take those opportunities to take those little things. Go out and see Dr. Harvitz.
Only if you hurt yourself on your 5-minute walk.
Only if you hurt. Yes. He's not a prescription doctor for sure. He's going to help you if you're hurting or you got chronic pain of any kind. Correct?
Yeah.
There's not really anything on the board. We encourage you to go see Dr. Harvitz at Renew Concierge Physical Therapy.
Yeah.
And you said you might have a name or a rebranding coming up?
Yeah, we're just about to launch the next 2 months. We're rebranding to Renew Integrative Physical Therapy, because it kind of encapsulates a little bit more about what we're doing. It started off as chronic pain treatment,
sure.
But because inflammation can affect any part of your body, we are treating a lot of gut issues. We're treating a lot of, I mentioned earlier, neuropathy.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got diabetic neuropathy, you need to go to your doctor, get
sure.
that taken care of from a medical side. But then you also have neuropathy is just inflammation in the nerves, because the sugar creates it.
Right.
And so we can actually drain the inflammation out of your nerves and get rid of sciatica and things like that very directly. And so we're branching into more than just pain. And so integrative kind of encapsulates a lot more of what we're capable of doing.
Fantastic. Well, sir, we've really enjoyed it. We hope to have you back, talk about it a little bit more, and see where your business has grown after you've done the rebranding, especially, and see what's going on. How do people get in touch with you if they want to know more?
Yeah, so you could just Google Renew Concierge Physical Therapy here in Pensacola. We have a location here and in Destin, and there's phone numbers on there. Don't ask me what it is.
So it's just about
Yeah.
it, man.
Yeah, don't give us a call.
Do what everybody else does and Google the phone
Yeah,
number.
Google
There you
it.
go.
That's
It
right.
works.
I have friends that call me and say, "Hey, Dave, how do I contact your office?" I'm like, "Just Google me."
And you're also talking to me right now.
Yeah.
You asked me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to having you back and following you and seeing the progress that you've made and how the impact of this is going to have on other entrepreneurs. You never know what's going to be that key ARC conversation that people are going to hear, and it's going to change the entire trajectory of their lives. So thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for joining us on the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast. Talk to you next week.
Hey, did you enjoy that episode? Excellent. We hope you did. Guess what? There's more. Go to Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Listen to us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. WPNM Radio 103.7. Follow and subscribe. Stay up to date on new episodes by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Join the conversation. Comment on Facebook or Instagram. Send us a message and comment at the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast at gmail.com. Share the episode. If you enjoy it, tag us and let us know your favorite takeaway. Thank you for joining us for our radio broadcast. If you want to hear the rest of the episode, go to our website, thearcpodcast.com.